All right, well, good morning. Welcome to September 19th ASSP Alabama Chapter meeting. If you would stand and join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And let me apologize first for anybody on Zoom. We're having issues with the cameras in here today, so you'll be able to see the PD presentation, PowerPoint presentation slides, but you won't be able to see me or Danny in the cameras, I guess. So better for you, I guess. Danny, you're up.
With me anyway, right? Yeah.
Today we have Safe Start. Danny Smith.
Yes.
Doing a presentation on
Thanks,
blame
sir.
and accountability.
Cool.
He hasn't done this one for ASSP or the Governor's Conference yet, correct?
No, I have not
So
done
this
for
is
the
a brand
Governor's
new one from
Conference.
Danny. Enjoy.
Okay, the pause a second, let me.
All right, all good. Okay, cool. All right, this is going to be a little bit interactive today. All right, so I'll give you a heads up. Look for you to kind of chime in on some things here. I have had the opportunity to do this a few times already. This is a fairly new presentation. I think this is probably my 5th or 6th time doing it now. Did it for one of the VPPA. I always put too many P's in there. The VPPA, that's right, over in Stone Mountain was the first one I did. And I've had the opportunity to do all 3 of the national shows this year, so it's really cool. It's been pretty well received. Did not get a chance to do it at the Governor's Conference, but maybe next year with that, we'll see. But I want to talk a little bit about blame and accountability, all right? And think about this as we go through this. So I think everybody pretty much knows me, or has at least seen me on, seen my picture around anyway, maybe at the post office, but you probably know where I'm at. I want to start this out with a quick little scenario and get you to think about this. We're going to come back to this a couple of times, so you don't have to answer anything on it right now. But if you would, think for a second about this. Let's say you have an employee who is rushing to finish a task because their employer has a strict no overtime policy. So this guy or lady is rushing to get back to the time clock to clock out at the end of the day. And as they're doing that, they trip over a toolbox that one of their coworkers has left in the middle of the aisle. So the question for you would be this: whose fault is this? All right. Is it management? Is it the employee who tripped? Is it the coworker who left the toolbox there? Or is it someone or something else, if you will? So kind of think about that. Keep that in the back of your mind. And we'll talk about that a couple of times as we go through this. So one of the things I'd like to start with is thinking about this idea of blame first, and we'll shift over to accountability in a bit, okay? We all know that blame is toxic. I mean, it's bad, right? If you follow the HOP methodology, one of the tenets there is that blame, it fixes nothing. And that's a clear thing, right? We talk with the Safe Start organization that I work with, we talk a lot about climate and culture. And one of the things that we realize there is that you have to have what we call a no blame mindset. But with that, I think there are 3 things we really need to acknowledge with this. First of all, recognizing blame as being problematic does absolutely nothing to fix it. I think that's self-explanatory, right? The second thing that I would say is when we say no blame, that's a bit different than never blame. And what do I mean by that? How many of you have things in place like, life safety codes or specific, I call them the thou shalt nots, the cardinal rules of safety. If you are working at heights, you better be tied off, right? If you are taking a guard off a machine, it better be locked out. Those are the non-negotiables. We all have those. If somebody violates one of those, we know what's going to happen, right? That's different in my mind than blame, isn't it? Yeah, I think so. The third thing I would suggest is it's possible for us to talk about things like human factors and even mistakes that we all make without blame entering the discussion. And I think that's one of the things that we miss sometimes. So let's talk about a few things here. First of all, where are we at with blame? How many of you are like me? You've been working on stuff. Maybe you got a hobby, working on cars, carpentry work, cooking, whatever it is. And you're using some tools. You're over there, you're working, you set something down that you're working with, you do something else. And as you're working on that, you need that first tool that you've got. And even though you're there by yourself, You look around, you can't find the tool you were just looking for. Have any of you ever said this? It's always a 10 millimeter socket too, right? Yeah. I found out the other day, you can buy those by the gross on Amazon now. It's like, hey, wow, that's a perfect solution, right? Have y'all ever been working by yourself though, and you turn around and you say, who moved my? Wow. Are we quick to blame? Huh? So smaller group, often I ask people to share this one-on-one with somebody here, but just real quickly, think about a time when you have blamed somebody else. And you don't have to give me any details on that, but the question I would ask you is this. Why do you think it is that we find it so easy to blame other people? Why do you think that is? What's that? We don't want to blame ourselves, right? Very good. Thank you for that. Yeah. Somebody else? Don't everybody go quiet on me here. Takes the accountability off us. I like that. Yeah.
Bad consequences.
Bad consequences, right? Yeah. How about this? Let's shift gears a little bit. Have you ever been blamed for something? Maybe sometimes something you did, sometimes something you didn't do. I'll give you a quick example of this, and I'll try to make this short because I know we want to keep the time tight here, and I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch, right? And I know how that works, but it works good when you got the big guy up front doing this before lunch. You know we're going to finish on time, right? I used to work for a plastics housewares manufacturer. We not only made stuff that was sold to some of the retail stores, we also did some ad specialty work as well. So you could buy, an ice tray, a coffee mug. I said ice tray the other day in front of my grandson, and he looked at me, he's 9, he says, what's an ice tray? Wow, I feel old now, right? Yeah. But, we could do, if you wanted to order, a truckload of coffee mugs with your corporate logo on the side of it, we could do that. We could even do custom color matches if you wanted to. So we had a very, very large order that came in for some coffee mugs. They wanted a very specific color. Now, folks, this is 40 years ago now. Pantone PMS 201C Burgundy. Do you think it's embedded in my mind? It's like a nightmare. If you've ever had to do anything with color matches, you know that reds are really, really tough. And we had to work with our dye manufacturer for several times. We went through 3 or 4 or 5 different lots of dye to get the exact color match this client wanted, and they were really particular. They told us up front, if you send us stuff that's off color, we're sending it back. And we're not just going to send a few mugs back that are off color. We're just going to send the whole truckload back, and y'all can sort them out. So we knew that going in front, right? Well, every time we would get a dye sample in, we would run a couple of 100 parts, put those up in our sample bin so we would have good color matches for later. We finally got one that worked. A few months later, it's towards the end of the month, we're trying to wrap up an order, get it on the truck, get it out to meet the client's deadline and to meet our shipping goal for the month. Our molding machine goes down. The silkscreen department printing those catches up to the molding machine. They're out of parts. They need literally just a few more parts to finish out this order and ship it. Somebody gets the bright idea, let's go over to the sample bin, see if there's any leftovers from the sample run of this. Well, it was not only that run, but also the other 3 or 4 that we had as well. Somebody brought one over to the director of production and held 2 of them up and says, hey, this is the real color. We got a handful of these. We can finish the order with this. What do you think? Yeah, you get ahead of me on the story, right? He said, go ahead and run them, but don't put them all in one box. Just spread them out over about 6 or 8 boxes. About 2 weeks later, we are all in a production meeting, and several of us knew of this decision, by the way. The director of molding did not. And we're in a meeting, and he looks up and says to the whole group, hey, I hear we've got a truckload of XYZ mugs coming back. What in the heck happened? Without missing a beat, the director of production looks up, and he looks directly at me and says, y'all ran the wrong color. Wow. How do you think I felt working for that man at that point? Not real enthused, I can tell you that, right? Wasn't something I even did, and we all knew what had happened, but he wasn't going to own up to it, right? By the way, I didn't have to worry about working him for much longer. There was some other stuff he was doing, and he was out the door pretty quickly thereafter. So I didn't have to worry about that for too long. But that blame was there, wasn't it? Shifting focus to somebody else, even though they didn't deserve it. So we got kind of a common starting point here, don't we? We've all blamed folks for stuff. We've all been blamed for things ourselves. So let's think about that, and let's think about some symptoms of blame culture and what that really does for us. First of all, let's think about some disciplinary things that happen. Usually when somebody gets blamed, it's to do what? To discourage anybody from doing the same thing again. And it's not only that person, but it's also what? It's everybody else. Don't you make the same mistake that so-and-so made. Yeah? Hi, come on in. We also have some things. I heard this the other day before I moved from this slide. Forgot this was on here. Folks, quite often in the world of safety especially, it's blame, shame, retrain. Y'all ever heard that one? Yeah, we rely on that a lot, don't we? There also can be some social consequences. And with this, quite often, the incident is framed in terms of an individual shortcomings. As we would say around here, I'm not sure that's the sharpest tool in the shed, right? Not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Yeah, we have all of these things that we say about folks, and we're focusing the attention and the blame upon them. There also can be some passive aggressive things that happen too. People are given bad schedules. They have their communications ignored. Maybe they're micromanaged. Does that resonate? Yeah. It can even be things within not just the managers and supervisors to those employees. It can also be peer-to-peer, can't it? Hey, Tom, we're going to run over to so-and-so's and catch a beer this evening after work. You want to come with us? Sounds good, right? Yeah. Hey, you didn't tell Joe, did you? I hope there's not a Joe in here, by the way. I didn't look at the registration list. You remember what he did the other day? I'm still aggravated with him. Don't you tell him we're going over there. I don't want to be anywhere around that joker. Yeah? Does that ever happen? Yeah, absolutely, right? So if you would, think about a map. Some of us in the room are old enough to remember maps, okay? We don't use maps anymore now, do we? Everything's GPS, isn't it? Yeah? I'm old school. I remember when we had to use maps. Y'all remember atlases? Yeah? We used to have travel and you'd have to take an atlas around with you. I got tickled. My wife was over at her dad's house the other day, and he said, I'm looking for such and such, and I can't find it. Here, help me find it. And he pulls out an atlas, and she starts looking, and they can't find it. And finally, she flipped over on the inside cover, and it was like from 1997. She's like, Dad, there's no reason, no wonder this thing isn't in here. This thing's as old as I am nearly, right? So we used to have to use maps. Heck, I'm really old. I remember in Scouts, we not only learned maps, we learned how to use a compass, right? Yeah, that's it, orienteering. I can't even say the word today, but right? But yeah, we learned how to do that. But now everything's GPS. Regardless of what we're doing or how we're using those things, we are doing what? We're trying to get to a common destination or common goal. We're trying to get to where we want to be, right? But the thing about it, blame can take us off course. And I'll talk real quick about three common things that blame can do, three common directions that can take us. The first one I would say this is sometimes we start blaming the system. And I am here from Alabama. I'm a native Alabamian, so y'all will probably hear some of my redneck ancestry coming out here, and y'all can relate to some of that, all right? As I go through some of these. You ever hear things like this? They don't ever fix anything around here. Ain't no way to make them happy. What about this one? How can we can't hit our production goals with this crappy equipment? How in the world do they expect me to turn out quality parts when they haven't even PM'd this machine in 6 months? Yeah. Or one of my favorites, the only time we hear about safety was when something just went wrong. Yeah. What are we doing? We're shifting focus towards what? The system. Yeah. It can also be things where we blame somebody else. What were you thinking? You know, you may be the only person in the world dumb enough to do something like that. Nobody would ever say that, right? Yeah, I'm with you, right? Absolutely, yeah. What about this? This at home, I tell you what, third shift, get off their tails and do some work around here. Things might be a little bit different. What are we doing? Focusing on somebody else, aren't we? Yeah? You know, if maintenance would fix some of these hydraulic leaks, I wouldn't have slipped the other day in that puddle of hydraulic fluid and busted my tail and hurt my back. Yeah. You get the idea there. We also at times tend to shift one other direction. That's blaming ourselves. How could I have done something so dumb or stupid? Yeah? What was I thinking? I can't believe I just did that. I should have been paying better attention. Yeah, you see how that can shift us in different directions with blame. Yeah. So thinking about that, and some of y'all have seen this before. I'm not going to go spend a lot of time on that. That's not my intent today. But we talk about things a lot in terms of how we learn organizationally through some learning loops, organizationally and individually. All right. And if you think about that, in our organizations, we learn through technical systems that we have in place, our policies, procedures, standard operating procedures, our safety management systems. All of that flows through some people systems with supervisors and supervisor skills. Culture is a big component of that as well. All of that flows down through the people that are actually doing the work, but they're affected by a lot of different things, including some human factors that affect all of us. Things like, weird question to ask, but how'd y'all sleep last night? Yeah, okay. I slept better last night than I've slept in about the past week. We were out in Denver for the NSC Congress. Boy, altitude really messes with me some, and so that, and I always say I like a soft mattress and a firm pillow, and you get the exact opposite in most hotels, and that's pretty much true. I was glad to get back to my bed Wednesday night, right? Even though it was late, I was glad to get home. So that had an effect on me. Even while I was there, while I was presenting, while I was meeting with folks there, it takes a toll on you, doesn't it? That's one of those internal factors. That affects your thinking, both conscious and subconscious, and also affects your actions, right? So it's pretty clear to see that blame can have an impact on our outcome, be it safety, quality, productivity, even interpersonal relationships, right? But my question would be this: where in that whole organizational or individual learning loop there that we talked about there, where do you see that blame could fit into that? Yeah, all of them, I agree. I asked that question to a group a while back, and somebody looked up and said yes. And I think that's the answer, right? Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry for those of you online there. I didn't mean to cough in your ear. But yeah, I think it can affect us in all sorts of ways, can it? So I was up in Ohio back, I guess it's in the early part of the summer now that I think about it. And I heard one of the keynote speakers there. Her name was Candace Carnahan, really, really great motivational speaker from up in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And she made a comment during her presentation, and I grabbed my notebook and wrote it down real quickly. And it was simply this: pointing fingers does not make things better. It makes you bitter. I won't say it again. Pointing fingers does not make things better. It makes you bitter. And sometimes I tend to overanalyze things too much. Guilty as charged. But I have spent a lot of time thinking about that simple statement since then. And one of the truths that I think has hit me with this is, in terms of that bitterness, it is not only the person being blamed that can be bitter. It can also be the finger who is pointing the person who is pointing the finger, right? If we're blaming somebody else, can that cause us to be bitter with them? Absolutely, right? So I think we have to really think about that in terms of how this blame affects all of us, all right? So you think about the fear of blame and some of the consequences. Do you think folks would be less likely to use something like stop work authority if they've gotten blamed in the past for things? Oh, absolutely. There's no way I'm hitting that red button. You saw what happened to Fred the other day when he hit it. Yeah, he got blessed out. And he was right, by the way. The machine was malfunctioning, putting out bad parts. It wasn't safe. It wasn't, you get the idea. But yet, some supervisor said something, and there's no way anybody's going to hit the red button after that, right? Yeah. Incident reporting could go down as well. I was working with a client down south of Houston back a few years back. They had a near-miss reporting system that they put in place. And the deal was, when they put it in place, they had these little white cards, wanted you to jot down whatever the situation was, turn it in, and there would be no reprisal whatsoever, regardless of what the situation was. Everything was rocking along. They had good results from that. They were getting a lot of good information, making some good improvements. And then there was one that came in that, in upper management's view, was so egregious, we must find out what's going on here. We have to find out what's going on here. We have to discipline somebody over this. And they did, through process of elimination. How many white cards do you think they had turned in after that? If you're going with 0, you'd be completely correct. Yeah. In fact, the process I was teaching them at the time, we had some cards that were white in there, and they even asked me, said, hey, can we print these on a different color card stock? And I was like, Why? That's the weirdest question I think I've ever had. And it says, we don't want any white cards around the facility. Like, wow. But it came back to blame, right? You get the idea with some of these other things as well. We won't go into all of them right now. So thinking about this idea of blame versus accountability, that's where I want to get to with this. We need to untangle blame from accountability. And that's going to be something that we have to think about how we're going to do it. Accountability really, if you go back to that idea of the map or looking towards a destination or an outcome, accountability really focuses on not only where we've been, but where we're going and how are we going to get there, right? And where we are right now. Accountability really starts with an expectation. You've clearly outlined what it is that you want to accomplish, be it safety, be it quality, be it productivity, whatever it is. There also has to be some acknowledgement of things that are happening. How many of you ever saw that famous bumper sticker that said, stuff happens? Okay, some of y'all saw a different bumper sticker than I did, but that's okay, yeah. Things are going to happen, aren't they? You ever been driving and your GPS says this? Recalculating. Yeah. What happened? Well, something just happened. You missed a turn, there's traffic ahead, something's going on that's shifting the direction we're going. Is that going to happen? Absolutely, that's going to happen, right? Incidents are going to happen. We got to shift our expectations. And then you said orientation, orienteering, sorry, I can't get the word out, right? But that's what we literally have to do then. We have to reorient ourselves back towards what? Our destination. That's what our GPS is doing when it's doing the recalculating deal, right? It's telling us, hey, we got to go back and rethink about how we're going to get there. Blame really is a tactic that takes us off course from where we're going. It keeps us from learning from the things that are happening as well. It really starts with the fixation on what went wrong, how it went wrong, who did it. And we do that because what? Well, we want to blame somebody. We want to discipline somebody. We want to try to put that behind us. I was on a call earlier with some folks and they said, you know, we tend to think that just because we discipline somebody or even terminate somebody that we fix the problem. No, you didn't, you know, and you got some other things that are going on there as well. And that's the thing. We can't just focus on any one particular thing. We really got to take a bit of time and kind of shift away from that idea of blame. Anything that happens in an organization, we've got the opportunity to go down that path of blame or stay on the path of accountability. And we got a decision to make. And that's the big thing here. And what I've found is the easiest way to make sure you're staying on the path of accountability is to take a step back and try to just disengage or deconstruct your reaction from the incident itself. Say that again. You got to take that step back and deconstruct your reaction to the incident. And then you can focus in on what you need to do, right? Yeah. Is that easy to do? No, but it's something we can train ourselves to do, and I think we need to do that, right? Would that work for us, take it away from the industrial environment? Would that help us in our families? Oh yeah, absolutely, right? Yeah. Take a moment, deconstruct the reaction, think about what happens, yeah? Let's go back to our employee who tripped over the toolbox. Remember him from earlier? Yeah? If you think about that in terms of what were some of the outcomes that we would want to have after an incident like that, what would you think some of the outcomes would be? Well, number one, I would say if the person were hurt, we obviously want to make sure that we take care of them, right? Number one priority, anytime we've got somebody hurt. Is it important as well for us to acknowledge that an incident happened? Sure, we want to learn from it, right? We want to keep something similar from happening again. And another one, and I'm going to say this with a caveat because we're going back to consequences in a moment, but we want to make sure there are consequences from that. We want to make sure, though, that we learn from this. And consequences, I am getting ahead of myself, but consequences don't always mean discipline, right? And that's a big thing for us to remember. So we can go down this path of blame, focusing on those three cardinal directions that we talked about, the systems, ourselves, or perhaps other people, or we can go down this path of accountability where we start trying to see things in terms of the big picture. Again, taking that step back and saying, okay, what's really going on here? There may be gaps in the systems. There may be gaps with the individual. There may be gaps with us. But we need to examine that holistically instead of just, oh, well, that's what it is, and think that that's the pat answer, right? All right. So we got to stay focused on the goal. Well, our marketing department helped me with these slides, in case you're wondering. I am not that creative. Boy, some of these, it's like, I don't think I've ever had a Picasso in one of my presentations before. It kind of looks like it, doesn't it? Yeah. But by removing blame from an incident, it helps us to focus back on what really is going on. But again, it takes what? Taking that step back. And I think that's a real important lesson for all of us, right? Be it industry or at home. So let's shift a little bit in the time we got left and shift from blame over to accountability. Think about how we can be accountable. One of the biggest things that I have found in terms of accountability and why there's not accountability in companies and in organizations, whatever type of organization it is quite often there's just no communication. And people aren't talking and communicating what's going on. And anytime there's a gap in communication, what are people going to assume? The worst, right? Yeah, kind of stands to reason. Excuse me. So really we have to have a commitment organizationally to maintain some really good psychological safety, get that atmosphere and that culture of trust and mutual respect where people are not afraid to report things, where people are not afraid to talk about problems. They don't feel like they're going to be blamed when somebody mentions something, right? We really have to do that if we want to have that continuous improvement cycle, be it individually or organizationally, like we were talking about before. Excuse me. In terms of that, who do you think needs to commit with this? Everybody, right? Yeah, it's got to be top down, bottom up, all through the organization. It's got to be the organization itself. It's got to be the leaders, safety professionals, the workers, everybody, right? And I added this after I'd done this presentation a couple of times because I think this is a really, really important thing to say here. Accountability cannot reside solely on the shop floor. Yeah. Is that how we tend to view it sometimes, though? Yeah. We want to have accountability here, but yet we don't have it everywhere else through the organization. I feel like I'm a little bit like you on that one. I think I'm getting on a soapbox with that one at times, right? Yeah. So maybe Danny's rubbed off on me a little bit here with that. But, we can't just say, okay, you guys be accountable, you ladies be accountable, but the rest of the organization not be accountable. It all has to be accountable, right? So the commitments we're making then are things like our outcomes, be it safety, quality, productivity, you name it. We're committing, obviously, to communicating, to safety, and just being transparent with others. And when we come back to this idea of no blame and the consequences versus accountability, I think this is an important thing to think about. Consequences, as I said before, may not be disciplinary. I was presenting this at the ASSP down in Orlando back earlier this year, and one of the guys came up after the class, and he gave me that little bullet there at the bottom. He said, this is something he always challenges his team with when they have an incident. Because everybody wants to write somebody up, blame somebody, do this, do that, do that. And he said he always challenges them with that statement. If blame and discipline were not options, what else could you do? I think that is an incredible, incredible way to look at things. If blame and discipline were not options, what else could you do? And I think that's one of those things where it takes us and gives us that chance to take that step back, like we talked about a few minutes ago, and really examine things holistically. So again, I think one of the big things is communicating. And I'll share this real quickly. This actually came from a client I was working with up near Louisville, Kentucky. Y'all ever done training in a break room? Isn't that one of the grandest places to do a training class? Yeah. You're over there and you're right into the teaching points. You got everybody's attention, and all of a sudden the Coke machine, right? One of the things. Yeah, boy, great learning environment. Yeah. So I was in their break room, and it's actually a really nice break room area, but it was a break room, right? And I'm teaching and going through, but one of the things I noticed over there on their wall is almost about the size of that screen. It was huge. They had this huge whiteboard over there. And it was one of the ways that they were communicating with their folks. Now, it was a smaller facility. If you got a larger facility, you may have to have different ways of doing it, and we'll talk about that in a second. But they were using that as what I would call an accountability map, just a way for them to communicate with people. And this may seem really simplistic. I get that, but it's important. Let's just kind of walk through this, and I've got a little download. If you want to download the QR code to get one of these just as an Excel file, it's really simple. You can build your own if you want. But let's say if we were going to commit to something, and let's just use this as an example. If we were going to commit as an organization to reducing the numbers of slips, trips, and falls in the organization, who needs to commit to that, number one? Back to what you said, everybody, right? Yeah. So what would be some of the actions that you would propose that we do? Somebody give me one action you would do if you wanted to reduce the number of slips, trips, and falls. Okay, clean spills immediately. I like that one. Yeah. Housekeeping in general. Very good. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, tell me about that. Oh, shoes. Okay, I'm sorry. I misheard you. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, having the appropriate footwear. Very good. Yeah. More trash cans out. I like that. That's good. Yeah. All of these are great ideas, aren't they? Yeah. So when you get all of these ideas, and I think first of all, it's important to go to the folks that are out on the floor actually doing the work and ask them what's going on and ask them how they can improve. If you do that, then you come back and you just make the hit list, if you will, of things to work on. Here's a few that we put on. Improve housekeeping during the shift. Y'all ever been in an environment where housekeeping was done the last 5 minutes of the shift and no other time? Yeah. So maybe we try to do that during the shift. Maybe a second one, boy. Forgot operations folks in the room, they cringe with this one. Maybe we modify the expected outcomes or output expectations to minimize rushing. Instead of having a quota at 100%, maybe we make it 95, and we say, hey, we want everybody to be cleaning as you go throughout the day. Keeping good, clear aisleways, making sure that everything we drop is picked up. And hey, we're going to drop your expected output by 5% or whatever it is. We're going to give you this much time during the day to clean as you go. Now let's be realistic. What's going to happen quite often when people hear we've dropped the output expectancy down 5%? Hey, that's great. Now I can make 95%. I know the math doesn't work exactly 5% plus or minus, but you get the idea, right? Every supervisor's eyes light up. Every production worker's judged on their output. Their eyes light up because, hey, now I can make my quota easier. What do they not think about, though? The reason we lowered the standard, right? So it comes back to a bit to leadership and leadership expectations there too, doesn't it? Yeah. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox with that. What about just working on a habit where you look before you move? Something I've been working on for a number of years. It's not something you get perfect with, though. Ask my shin. It found the trailer hitch the other day. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Just in a hurry trying to get out of the rain, you know. Knew it was there. My truck. You know, I put it there. Yeah. What about implementing systems for checking your progress? That's big too, isn't it? And then the last one I put up there. I actually modified this one after the first time I presented this. Celebrate your successes. And I think it's also important for us to celebrate what? The failures. Why is that? Well, failure is nothing but a time for us to learn something, isn't it? And if we, what's that? Failure is an opportunity, yeah. I had a situation happen to me a number of years ago where I won't go deep into it, but we spec'd something out on a project we were working on. And basically, a short version of the story is we poured the loading docks at a facility where we're adding some more dock doors at 42 inches for the dock height instead of 48. And that's not like a typo, 48 versus 7 or 49, right? That was 42. And I was the one who typed it, right? And all of our senior leaders looked at it and none of us caught it. I don't know what in the world we were thinking. But yeah, today's money is probably about $125,000 mistake. Yeah. I went to my boss and I said, hey, I'll resign if I should. You know, you tell me. And he said, what? Are you kidding me? We just invested $100,000 in making sure you don't make that mistake again. Yeah. It was a learning opportunity, right? Yeah, absolutely. So celebrate your successes and your failures. You can see how we got this laid out. Pretty simple. Lay out when these things are expected to happen, who's going to be doing it, and then keep folks updated. And I need to update this file. I updated the one I did at the NSC last week, and I forgot to change the dates in this one. I had a different file for it. So yeah, these look a little old now, don't they? But it's important for us to keep this updated. If you were to come into the break room, or maybe you're doing this electronically, or however you're doing it, and you see those dates, what's the first thing you're going to think? Another thing fell through, right? Yeah, so I need to update this main file here and put the current dates in there, right? Yeah, but you got to keep these things up to date. Sometimes in organizations, you have a suggestion about something. This goes back to the whiteboard that I saw in that plant that day. There are things that you can't do immediately. There are things that are going to take a bit of time. Sometimes it may be you need some more CapEx money. You may need whatever it is. Maybe a part or a piece of equipment you've ordered and it's going to be 6 weeks before it gets here. What do you do then? Communicate it. Let folks know, hey, we got this system working. We're going to be doing this, but it's going to be a while, and here's why. And again, if you don't do that, folks think the worst, don't they? Yeah. But just that simple communication, letting folks know, hey, this is where we're at with this. We'll keep you updated. In fact, the plant I was in up in Louisville, there were a few things that were on the board that were a little bit older, but they had put up there, hey, we can't do this, and here's why. And they actually kept those on the board for a while. I thought that was really important too, right? Yeah. So bottom line, find a way to communicate. You may not have a whiteboard like that may not be applicable in your department or your plant, whatever it is, but find a way to do that. It really keeps us focused. Let me get forward here just a little bit. You may use other things here like digital displays. Maybe it's an email template that you send out to everybody. Maybe you kick this stuff out with toolbox talks with your supervisors. Hey, today we're going to be working on this, this, and this. We need to keep this, this, and this in mind. By the way, we had a safety suggestion about this. Here's where we're at with that. Yeah, keeping everybody, maybe you want to lead with that too, because we all know that they don't always listen to the tail end of the toolbox talks, right? So, get that information out there. All right, so let's wrap this up here. Put a bow on it. First thing with blame, we talked about there are 3 different directions that can take us. We can point to systems, we can point to other folks, we can point to ourselves. We also have to make a collective agreement and focus that we as an organization, top to bottom, are going to do what? Expect each other to be accountable with this. Bless you. We're also going to come back and find some way to communicate where we are with things, our successes and our failures with this, and make sure we're having a chance to learn from them, okay? All right, let me close with this thought. Let's go back to our employee tripping over the toolbox one more time. I asked you this question to start with. I said, who's at fault? See, it's a bit of a trick question. I don't think that's the question we even need to be asking, to be honest. I think the question instead is this: who's accountable? Does that shift the focus a little bit differently? Absolutely. But sometimes, again, it takes taking that step back and re-examining instead of looking who's to blame. Hey, who's accountable here? And in this case, I don't know about you, but I would suggest we could check all of the above, right? And probably even add some to the list, right? Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for being here. Glad to get the opportunity to do this. Couple of things real quickly. That is a QR code if you'd like to download on the left there, and I'll leave this up for a couple of minutes here, unless you got another slide coming up here next. The one on the right gives you a couple of download resources from our organization, not being salesy with that. But then the other one is actually an attendee survey, and you want to talk a little bit more about that, Vince? What you got there?
We have a survey just instead of a piece of paper, so you can give input on the presentation and everything. You can do that using that checklist. So folks online or here can do that with their phone and give us some feedback.
Awesome. Good deal. All right. Any questions on anything? This helpful today? Just kind of reframing our thoughts. Yeah. Saw a few of you jotting down a few notes there, like, hey, I need to think about that some more, and that's good. That's what I like to do with things like this. Just really get people thinking a little bit differently. All right. Cool. I'll stay out of everybody's way here and make sure you get to the QR codes, because if I step in front of it, you ain't gonna get the QR code. Trust me. Yeah. Go ahead, Danny. Go ahead, Danny. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And I would love to take credit for it myself, but I had a bit of input on it, but our marketing team really came around and did some research with me on this and helped me with this, and I love how it turned out. So credit more so to them than to me. I thank you for that, though. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any more
Anybody
questions?
else?
Well, thank you, Danny. For
Thank you.
great
Awesome.
presentation. And the chapter would like to show your appreciation with another one of these covered mugs.
Another one.
You could have enough for a meeting now with the entire staff at Safe Staff.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Oops, sorry. I drank out of my coffee cup just the other morning, in fact, so very good. You need this again?
Good afternoon. Anybody who hasn't been here before, want to introduce themselves to the here? Can you introduce yourself to everybody?
My name's Bill Collier. I work for Fulton Painters Incorporated. I've been there since before dirt was invented. I'm the corporate, safety and training manager. I started off at the bottom and just worked my way up. The opportunity came up and I gladly took it. And, I appreciate, you know, everything that I have learned. And I appreciate everybody here. It's been a roller coaster.
We all been there.
Yeah.
You might think you're in the front seat by yourself, we're right behind you.
I can do it to all my employees. Matter of fact, probably about 75% of my hired over the years. I've had a commitment to their safety, make sure that they're gonna go home at the end of the day just as healthy as they came in.
Glad to have you. I have a good day.
Very good.
That's like for, this anything. Candy, yeah, you say, you know, what's on, you get to have, your adventures out in the world. Yeah, I mean, safety shares or adventures you've seen out there recently, that you wanna talk about at all?
Well, there was it's happened before, but recently there was a company that bought brand new harnesses for their employees. And I mean, spent about $300 a piece, and double we tracked, about $300 a piece. Had the factory come and did training, and I mean, everything was incredible. They were all excited, and they fell, and I got a call that, Danny, we need you to come talk. And, one guy fell, but he had a big pen in his pocket. And that strap, with the pressure with fall, he was going to fall face first. Drove the big pin through his heart, killed him.
Ooh.
Wow. It's the little things that hurt people.
Mm.
And but what a story, and I got to go and just, you know, kind of just witness to them. And they were devastated. But they're getting, our guys were keys in their pocket. Can you imagine? Keys in their pocket, 900 pounds of force.
I never drive with a pen in my pocket.
Really?
I always have a pen someplace around, but I never drive with a pen in my pocket because either an impact or even the airbag and the force for which those things can hit you. It's just, yeah, one that's kind of rounded, not so big, but you know, you got these others that have got the nice stylus type tip on there. I just never drive with a pen in my pocket.
But I, you know, some of us have been around a long time. You know, I've been doing safety 50 years, 200 fatalities, in my career. But, what's amazing now, in the last 5 years, more or less, is how the industry has just turned around. And because of insurance companies, basically, our work sites are unbelievable. The industry you were in, it wasn't unusual if people fall. Yeah, I mean, it was common to support what you did, but nowadays it's unacceptable everybody. And I just, that's why I retired from GNR 6 years ago. And last year I trained 4,000 people. People say, what are you gonna give it up, Danny? And I said, as long as the good Lord willing, I'll never give it up, man. Because people are just buying into it, and they all know it's important to go to the family. And that's what's great, and a lot of times as a safety professional, we don't see that. We hear the bad things. In fact, when I started doing safety, my job was to fire people. We didn't help people, we fired people. Right. And we don't do that anymore. Thank God. But so exciting, and then see, you share with UAV and the excitement in the youth that are coming up. I get to work with Academy of the Crafts and some apprentice programs. And the youth of today, people say it. They ask a lot of questions. But once they're convinced that you care, they buy into it. But you gotta care. And in the past, they didn't care. I said it.
Well, my safety chair is not with setting chairs, but probably none of you are gonna run into this, but I ran into this for the second time in my career. You buy emergency lighting out of China. You have to test it periodically, basically every month. 1910-37-84 says that. There's a test button. I broke a test button this week testing emergency lighting from China because it's molded into the plastic component of emergency exit sign. It's a big test button. Basic test. So there's no way to test these new lights that they just put in, see if they work. So watch that, you're supposed to test them, there's a test button, you're supposed to hit it, and automatically changes the battery power, see if it works. So they have to replace, I think they had to replace 4 lights in the facility that have fake test buttons from these emergency light systems coming out of China. So watch that. This is the second time I'm running across with this manufacturing go over. Wow. So we had a broken emergency light test button, just so you know. And
I'll try it again.
okay, then, okay, events conference is coming up, we're excited about this, on October 10th. ABC, agency, ASSP, manufacturers in Alabama are doing a litigation consequences of a catastrophic incident. The speaker is, Bruce Henderson, is gonna be at the University of Alabama, we've already filled up the room with 55 people. However, Zoom is open, we've got 150, I think, right now for Zoom, it's open for Zoom. However, you go to the site to register for Zoom, in big blue letters, it says click here for Zoom. Most everybody's been going down below and clicking one, and then proceeding on to in room. Hopefully it's closed now, so I've had to do about 75 people and re-register them for Zoom because they accidentally signed up for in room versus Zoom. It's in big blue letters. This will be October 10th. Hopefully you can attend. We've opened it up to Mississippi, ASSP, and a bunch of other organizations that I can't remember as well. So hopefully they'll have a huge turnout. Right, the date right for the mine safety conference here in Birmingham on October 20th and 30th.
It's our 19th annual conference, and it's the largest mine conference in the country. Wow. We started the first year, we had 90 people in Nashville, and before COVID, we got to almost 600 people. And we're at Ross Bridge.
Yeah.
And on the 28th, I'm in charge of an 8-hour pre-conference for contractors and maintenance people. And a lot of people feel like, well, I don't get involved in mining. Well, what we're talking about is everything but thinking. Because contractors, they work other places too. Right.
So it's a really exciting conference to bring an opportunity to get there.
In Ross Bridge, so
Yep.
if you're out of town, it's a great place to stay. If you're not from out of town, it's a great place to bring your spouse. Let her go to the spa. You work. That's one of the worst places.
Yeah, October 10th, will it be recorded so it can be watched later? So I won't be traveling that day.
Are we gonna record it?
I guess Safe State or whoever is doing the Zoom, because I'm not managing the Zoom.
I'll check on that.
Yeah.
Send me an email.
All right.
And I'll check on Monday to see if we're recording. Prior to COVID, we did some PDCs for your certification, get CEUs for towards your recertification. So in February 5th, 2026, it's a Thursday for 5 hours. We're starting at 9 in the morning. It'll go about, Dr. David Carpenter is going to do a PDC on, are you prepared for an electrical fatality or accident? And what he's going to cover for the safety people there is, how does electrical work from the power plant to your actual machines in the facility? So he'll cover that too, in case you don't understand the whole process. he's gonna go over there, as well as the other, parts of the PDC, which I got in another slide, and you'll see. This is what the PDC is gonna cover. So how electrical systems works is what I talked about, how to investigate an electrical accident, how to be prepared for OSHA. So this is what's gonna be covered, we are gonna charge. We're gonna charge $50 for it, we can, it will cover the cost of lunch. Any proceeds that are left over, we're putting towards a scholarship. We now have a scholarship from Jacksonville State University, thank you AGC, they are gonna put $1,500 towards it. So we'll do a 3,000 plus scholarship for JSU students. Upcoming meetings. November, I may or may not have a meeting, I haven't been able to get the guy to confirm he's gonna do it, so we may or may not have one. In which case, if the sections would like to have a combined chapter section meeting, we'd be more than happy to come to your location, Auburn, Opelika, Montgomery area, or Tuscaloosa. I'm excited about December 11th, this happened this week. Region 4, OSHA management, so Leandra Hughes and her assistant, and a couple of others from the Birmingham Regional Office are going to come introduce themselves. We partnered with ABC as a combined meeting, ABC and us, to be down at the Construction Craft Center, workforce something, right? Before COVID, call something else, down by Bradford, Glory on 6th Avenue, so downtown. The old, the Compass Bank facility down there near their headquarters, good location, tons of parking. They have Zoom capabilities, so we zoom in it. So you can attend by Zoom or in person. That'll be Thursday, December 11th of this year. I'm gonna meet the region, Birmingham region, OSHA office personnel. January 15th, we're gonna do a workers' compensation presentation. Ronnie Daniels from ATM is gonna put it on. And then in February, we're having our combined JSU Alabama chapter meeting again with the JSU students over at Jacksonville University. Stephen Sawyer from Bradford, Glory will be doing a presentation for the students there. That's our upcoming events we're gonna have. UAP has some training coming up, UA has some training coming up. Picked a couple of interesting ones from University of Alabama, electrical standards training and pandemic illness preparation. And then Deep South Center started back up their training, so they got a couple courses about October. And the Shivani testing for us, and then fit testing, a month. So this presentation, CEUs are going to be offered by ASSP. And we got accredited 1.1 CEUs, which is typical for the. They told us, hey, we're gonna make it easier for you. Yes. So rather than, it's gonna be logged in the ASSP website, and you can just click on everything and move it over to PCSP for they told us they were transferred over there. No, they're gonna send you this. You're gonna get a code download, and then it's your responsibility to get over to PCSP. So for anybody who has certification here, like Tina and Matt and everybody else, put down your email address for ASSP, because that's what they're going to use to send CEU points to you. If you put down an address they don't have, you get nothing. So this is not going to be as fun as we thought it was going to be. So we'll probably stay with UAB and UA as the backup for CEUs, because they'll just send you the certificate in mail, which is much easier than going for this, especially if we get to give them the right address to send it to you. So we're trying it, we're gonna see how it works. Now, this is your comments getting back to Vincent and me. Be kind, don't be brutal. How bad is it? Does it work? Is it okay? Because we can do this. It's a pain to get everything organized to get to see ASSP, because they want 6 months advance notice, or 6 weeks, advance notice, which is a lot of time sometimes with presentation, you don't give it the last minute. But we're willing to do this if it's easier. Sounds like from all the information I've gotten, it's not. It's gonna be more of a pain to just get certificates from UAB.
And you're on the,
Yeah, I'm on that,
okay,
so.
so
I think
this is.
really that's the
last one.
last slide.
That's the last one right
Yeah.
there. Yep.
So, this is still questionable, we may or may not have a meeting in November, we may go to a section and have a meeting with them combined. The sections want to have a meeting in November, you have to have 4 years, so, it'd be a good time to have your first meeting or second meeting of the year. Any questions? Please get back to us on the CEU through ASSP. We were told at the Region 4 meetings, this is gonna be simple, we're gonna make it so much easier. So far, everything that I've gotten from them in response to, this is a pain in the butt. This is not easy, UAB is easier, we're just gonna get the certificate, I can send it over. Let me know, let us know, and by all means, please put the address for ASSP, because that's what's gonna send it. For your appointment, CEUs today. Join the lunch, thank you for attending, appreciate it. Do we else have any comments? Looking forward to this motion meeting with the regional board people, before I call regional, Bernie and region now. They are really excited about this, they're happy, and again, it's down at the downtown. The construction craft building, huge building, across the street is Carlisle Barbecue. Carlisle Barbecue, remember, it's still in business, by the way. In fact, the last time we had a PDC there, they did the lunch for us. And anybody know anything about Carlisle Barbecue? Is it still good? Still good. That's probably good for a good lunch for this meeting with others. So thank you, that Carlisle is barbecue.
We did get an email from Christina Roll this morning that this is her last. She's almost done being the vice president of the Region 4 ASSP. So if anybody is ambitious and wants to serve as vice president of the
Region 4 area.
Region 4 area.
I haven't got that email. Oh, I'm so sorry, chief. I haven't said it. Region 4 has been coming up in October, what we're going to listen to the place I.
It came out at 8:30 this morning.
I'll say, let's see it. 5, 7, 9, I'll see it later.
You probably have one of those rules set up. Unless you put some trash or something.
They don't go in. It's terrible. Anything else, comments? Any questions? Any recommendations? Our treasurer, Alan said she's doing it one more year, it was this July, past July, so we'll be looking for a treasurer. Maybe next July, we'll have to replace the treasurer, so that'll be open, if somebody wants to become. I'm sure it's not that hard, to do, it's all forms today, I don't know anything about it, Alan's got that teach me, and the new person, and the president will be opening up in year and a half, basically. I think Justin is trying to become our new president. Vincent will move up to VP, so we'll be looking for a secretary. And Vincent loves being a secretary, he enjoys it, would love to train somebody in training to be our new secretary. He's awesome, man, because he knows what he's doing. So we're gonna be looking for to do, down the road. I'll be retiring, so I'll have fun today. I'll be going to Disney. Okay.
You'll look really good.
Pardon?
You'll look good with master.
Anything y'all want to talk about? This is your meeting. Say whatever you want.
May have a meeting worked out for November 7th. I had to pick Friday to do ours all this time.
Okay.
All right.
Let us know. We'll do it combined.
Working on those now.
Okay. We can do that. Cause this guy got back to me for November. He might be too busy, so, and that's fine, I understand. But we got everything outlined up for next February, and then I'll be working on March and so forth. Enjoy your lunch.
The